Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to What is Going Om, for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Times flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandy Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandy Sedgbeer.
Hello. Have you ever wondered how and why the world came to exist? Or whether there might be an afterlife experience awaiting you after your physical body dies? Might there actually be a God and a heaven of some sort? And if so, what kind of being could God be? Where did they come from? Bernard Haisch, PhD, is the author of The God Theory and the Purpose-Guided Universe, an astrophysicist and former scientific editor of the Astrophysical Journal. He's authored over 130 scientific publications. His wife, Marsha Sims, MM, has a multidisciplinary background that includes executive editor at the Journal of Scientific Exploration. In their latest book, A New View of Consciousness, God, Science and Reality, actually the title is The Miracle of Our Universe, A New View of Consciousness, God, Science and Reality, they explore the frontiers of science, consciousness and God to revolutionize our understanding of the universe and what's behind it all. So if you've ever asked yourself, what is the purpose of life? Are ND experiences real? What is consciousness? Does hell really exist? And is our physical universe actually a virtual simulation thought into existence by consciousness? Stay tuned. We're about to take a deep dive into the miracle of our universe. Bernard, Haisch, Marsha Sims, welcome.
Welcome. We're glad to be here.
Yes, we are.
Before we continue, I would just like to do minor corrections. Bernie's German, so his last name is pronounced Haisch.
Haisch, thank you for correcting that.
And I'm Marsha, Marsha. That's okay.
And I think you also wanted to say something else to our viewers before we start, didn't you?
Well, I just want to let everybody know that Bernard, or I call him Bernie affectionately, my husband of 36 years, has Parkinson's. So he's going to do his best to answer questions in interview, but please do allow him a few slip-ups, if you know, because it's sometimes difficult for him to speak really clearly. And I will go ahead and take over a lot of the questions because he's trained me quite well.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're here, Marsha.
Yeah, he's I'm the co-author. Okay, go on.
Yeah. And thank you, Bernard, for making this possible. So I want to ask you about how, first of all, Bernard, prior to your career in astrophysics, you were a student for the Catholic priesthood. How does your hypothesis about the universe sit with your religious training?
Well, as far as I can tell, it fits wonderfully. It provides not only a good, solid religious basis, but it produces some new attempts or new concepts flow out of our theory that I think this lead to a God that is very different than the God one typically finds out about in a Sunday school class. We can talk about that. We have definitely had a new kind of view of God that is more compatible with modern science emerged from these ideas.
Yeah, but so Bernie's, one of his main goals is to bridge science and spirituality. And that's one of the purposes of your Om Times program. So we're perfect to be on it.
Yes.
And yes, he wanted to be a Catholic priest when he was younger, and he was very passionate about it. It was his mom was always encouraging him, and one of his favorite pastimes would be that he would line up his stuffed animals on his bed and feed them communion. Isn't that cute? And so he was getting his practice as a youngster. But as he got older, he really got more interested in the stars, and he realized that he really wanted to be a scientist. But because of his spiritual training, I mean, he has used that to write this book and to form his philosophy. One of Bernie's primary philosophies of life can be heard in this quote that actually is prevalent on the internet. Advances are made by answering questions. Discoveries are made by questioning answers. And that's Bernie's philosophy of life. We question the answers and we make discoveries.
Right.
What puzzles me, and reading, your book, I understand that there's a lot that science will not even consider touching when it comes to spirituality, and yet I find that really odd because surely science is all about finding answers.
Well, yes, I mean, the two really provide two orthogonal glimpses of the same thing, reality. So we've gone and tried to create a new reality, a new conceptual reality that will accommodate the views that you mentioned, will accommodate a religion and a science together in a way that I think enriches both of them.
Yeah, so the official position of the National Academy of Science is that religion and science answer different questions about the world. Whether there is a purpose to the universe or a purpose for human existence, those are not questions for science. Science is a way of knowing about the natural world. It is limited to explaining the natural world through natural causes. Science can say nothing about the supernatural or spirituality. So whether God exists or not is not a question for science.
Well, several years ago, I interviewed a man who was a scientist. He was working for NASA. And I asked him a question about God. And he said there was a time when scientists would say, God? No, I don't believe in God. I'm a scientist.
Mhm.
But at the point when I was interviewing him, he said things had changed. And a lot of scientists were saying, God? Of course I believe in God. I'm a scientist.
I like that.
Well, there is some scientific evidence for, I guess you could say in quantum physics, it points to the existence of a greater consciousness.
Yes.
But I'd like to just clarify our position about God in our book and on this interview, because what we present here is a model of God, and God is not the conventional desert patriarch who sits on a throne and is surrounded by angels playing on harps and praising his name endlessly in songs. No, God is a vast consciousness, and God is not a he or a she. God is not a sex. So we say he only because that is what Bernie and I conventionally have been taught to use through our religious studies and faiths. Everyone said he, so it just seems natural, but it doesn't mean he. It means she, him, sheem.
So the word God actually then gets in the way, doesn't it?
It
does.
does, yeah. But Bernie wanted to use the word God because it was more conventional
Yeah.
and it's attention getting.
Yes, yeah, of course.
So,
So tell me what your hypothesis is.
Well, I thought the hypothesis about God is that he, again, there's a he. I really mean he,
he,
she.
she, him.
This,
Yeah.
is
I
the
think she, him is a good word, actually. Go ahead.
that a God that is let's see.
Want me to go take it?
Yeah, I'll come back to it in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, well, we live in a virtual reality. It's a cosmic conscious simulation that was created by a vast cosmic consciousness that we call God or creator or the source. Some people use the term the source. But we are sparks of God and we co-create with God. And I mentioned earlier that we have a model of reality and it's self-consistent, explains life and its purpose and what might be like life might be like in the afterlife. So it's a simulation of how God and science can coexist. And it starts with where did the vast consciousness called God come from? Well, we believe this consciousness came out of the Ein Sof, which is a term used in the Kabbalah tradition. It's a vast nothingness. And we quote John, verse 1, chapter 1, that in the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. And we looked up the word Logos. In Greek, it means expression of a thought. So it's not just a word of God, it's the expression of a thought or expression of consciousness. So what we believe about God is consistent with John 1:1. And God created the universe with the energy of love. It's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling, but actually a very powerful force. This love enhances consciousness in a strong emotional expression, creating inspiration and an attraction that is binding. So this goes along with science because quantum mechanics predicts that electron orbitals pop into and out of existence. And we attribute this, and Niels Bohr also did, that these electrons that pop into and out of existence probably come from consciousness, the vast consciousness known as God. And after God came out of the Ein Sof, God was really lonely, and God wanted to have companions. He wanted to have something to do. So he created the 0-point energy, which is a vast field of electromagnetic energy. And he used this to cause the Big Bang, which created the universe, all the solar systems, the stars, the planets, the moons, etc., us, and everything here on our planet. And you may want to know, what is the Big Bang? Would you like me to explain that?
Well,
I think everybody is familiar with that, but Jude Coeven says it's not so much a Big Bang as a long in and out breath.
well,
Go ahead, Bernie.
It's under scrutiny these days because it's doing something very strange. The universe seems to be not only expanding, but some parts of it are contracting, and so it seems like an environment that is oscillating between two different conditions. So the Big Bang that we observed in more detail 20 years ago has got to be refined to include this strange expansion and contraction of the whole universe. It's a big mystery in astronomy, one of the biggest ones, and it's a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah, but I guess when we refer to the Big Bang, we refer to the fact that the universe began just as a single point, and then it exploded and expanded and stretched to grow as it is now, and it's still stretching. And I guess you say contracting too.
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Those are two of the biggest mysteries in modern day astrophysics.
Is it evolving as it expands?
Well, we don't know. I mean, what do you mean by evolving? We have no cameras that can...
I guess, it's very easy to put human terms on this because what else, do we have access to, lay people?
Yeah.
But if I've heard some theories that the universe is constantly evolving as we evolve. So in a way, it's changing, it's transforming, and becoming more.
Well, I don't know about any coming more. It's hard enough to explain the coming that we've already gotten from the Big Bang. It's trying to think of some way to put this that would be more interesting than the usual one. In the usual one, we take the view that this expansion is historically known to be the case, and this is rather congruent with the fact that the Big Bang came from somewhere and it's going back to somewhere, but it's not. We don't know that. What is missing is a good view of time, because the universe seems to have has not evolved in the same sense as the sun, or the circle field, and the Big Bang itself.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a little garbled.
Yeah.
Marsha said.
I'm not sure. What did you want to say about time? We're not totally sure about time.
Let's go there for a second. It's more interesting than what I just said a minute ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is a difficult one.
It is.
It is.
And people get out of the weirdness of time by saying, well, okay, in the afterlife, there is no time. And that sounds good. And most of the books I've read on the afterlife and so on, and religious books, say that that time does not exist. But that's a big logical problem. How do you something to happen if there's no happening possible? I mean, evolution calls for a certain amount of things to happen, but if things can't happen if there's no time in which to embed them. So I guess it's, to my way of thinking, almost an insurmountable problem for our simplistic view that the Big Bang came out at some zero time and it's been expanding ever since. Yes, that's probably true, but really that's not all there is to the story.
Yeah, but because we believe that God imagines everything by organizing his thoughts into computer-like algorithms, that this does solve some of the great mysteries of time, because these algorithms are playing out what's going on. And I do want to say time in respect to consciousness is a different kind of time than time here that we experience as humans on Earth. For us, time is very sequential, but consciousness is more mathematical, and time can take all sorts of different positions. It's very fluid. How about that?
I think the question that puzzles most people is, we understand what you say, and it makes sense. And I understand that, we are sparks of that consciousness. And we are informing that consciousness in the same way I imagine that consciousness is informing us. But it's the bit about where and how did it actually begin? How can something come out of nothing? And how can something be infinite? These are the things that I can't get my head around. And I think most lay people have a challenge with that as well.
Well, that's a really difficult question because we don't know where God came from except the Ein Sof. And we have to take some of this as just, a theory that that's the possibility of what happened, because only God knows where God came from. And maybe not even that. Maybe God just appeared somewhere.
Do you think we will ever know?
We'll ever know. I have a feeling we will know when we go to the other side, after we pass out of human existence and we are in spirit. I think we know a lot of things on the other side that we don't know as human beings, because, that brings us to the reincarnation theory and the whole purpose for life here. And we are sparks of God, and we come here to have experiences, and God has these experiences through us. Bernie likes to tell this story about what would it be like if God wanted to experience skiing, right? Do you want to tell it, or you want me to tell it? Yeah.
Skiing is a lot of fun for human
Well,
beings.
we love skiing. We used to ski all the time.
So human beings love it. But the thing is, what about God? He's the one that made everything according to our theory. Doesn't he get to experience skiing? And I think the answer is, well, it's too bad, but spirits can't ski. And they don't have the right supplies.
He can't get skis on his feet. Doesn't have any feet, right?
Right. So all he needs to do, though, is to create a being that has the right characteristics to skiing. It seems kind of like a funny statement, but the fact is, it's not that difficult to comprehend that God, as a huge, enormous, everlasting being, would like to experience something. He makes it, and in making that, he learns about himself as the creator.
Yeah. So he learns his experiences through us, and it's really important to note that we have free will, because if we didn't have free will, then there would not be things that would arise just out of chance, whatever. Everything would be pre-planned, and it would be like God was in a puppet show. So God lets us have free will. He lets us make our mistakes, makes us make our choices, and then we have to live out the consequences of them also. But that way God can experience every possibility by giving us free will.
So if we are sparks of God, do we have exactly the same ability to create anything?
I think we do, though to a lesser extent. I mean, you always have to ration it down, the statements about God into human level. But I think that definitely that this is a way that God can experience himself. After all, how else could it be than something like that? It's logically about the lowest rung on the ladder. So I am content in acknowledging the fact that I probably am an incarnating being that has a spark of God, and that this is really the whole point of the system. And people worry a lot about what is the purpose of life. Well, what we're doing here in this little model is exactly that. That God uses us uses a bad word. I don't mean it to be pejorative, but uses his ability to create to study himself and to study all the creatures that are offspring of his.
I wonder what God makes of evil, because this is obviously a man-made thing. You know, we have free will. If we choose to do things that we consider to be evil, you know, I wonder whether God, in you know, the idea of God wanting to experience through us, whether God's reaction to that would be, "Oh, that's interesting." You know, there would be no judgment. It would just be, "Oh, you know, that's interesting. You've
I
created
think
something."
the people that create evil or do evil deeds, they have to pay karma for what they do. I mean, we definitely believe in the law of karma. You reap what you sow. And that goes along with the idea about how we create our reality. I mean, there have been many books written on we create our reality, and church sermons about that at Unity and other science of mind kinds of places. But we create our reality, and if we create evil, we have to pay a karma for it. We have to make up for it, some compensation. And you know, it may be in this lifetime, it might be in another lifetime. And that answers a question about why do good people sometimes have bad things happen to them. It could be they're paying up for karma in a past life that needed resolution. So, I mean, it's a theory. We can't be sure. It's a model. Everything we
Yeah.
say is based on a model.
But it
So
all raises some fascinating questions like, well, who created karma? You know, or, you know, why do we believe it?
why do we believe in karma? I guess that's part of the mathematical construct of the universe, right? You get back what you put out.
We're born into it, and so
Yeah.
that's an important part of how this happens. We are born into a world where things, both good and bad, can happen, and I don't believe that God has any malevolent intentions when it comes to things that can harm us. It's just the way the world works. The world wouldn't be very interesting, I imagine, if it were totally benevolent. So you need something like this.
Be very vanilla, right?
Yes.
We need drama. You know, we all like a good drama, right? When we watch a movie.
Mm.
There
Well,
has to be a villain, right? Or else there's no tension, no
yeah.
resolution.
So in the same way that, you know, God wanted to create us, we like to create things to entertain, amuse, distract, keep ourselves busy.
Yeah,
Right.
Mm.
it's true.
And it is just so interesting because these are questions, as you say, it's a model, and these are questions that many people ask themselves all the time. And the fact that we can't get definitive answers, you know, is very frustrating.
Maybe that's part of the whole process. Maybe God doesn't have one definitive answer. Maybe God's answers are always evolving also.
Yeah. Yes, you have free will. You can, you know, you can keep on creating and questioning and, you know. So one of the things that lots of people believe is in heaven and hell. You know, that some people say this is hell. You know, living a human life is hell. Others think that they could go to hell. Others think that they can go to heaven and they can have all kinds of rewards there. What does your model say about this?
Well, that we are not judged when we die. I believe. I mean, this is part of the model that I can't prove, but
We judge ourselves, though, by our actions.
That's the point. I think when we do go back to the afterlife and we review our past life, that it's a knowledge of what went well and what went not so well in our life, and especially in respect to our fellow man and woman. So coming up.
Okay, well, so first of all, Bernie convinced me that hell is impossible. I was actually raised thinking it was possible from my Christian background, but he convinced me it's impossible because hell is claimed to be an everlasting realm of torment reserved for humans who've committed grievous offenses against God. It's often referred to as mortal sins, mainly by Catholics, and he was practicing Catholic when he was younger. But he believes there's an open and shut argument against the existence of such a hell. Even the most evil person can only commit a finite number of sins in one mortal lifetime. So to condemn such a human being to everlasting torment would not only be unjust, it would be infinitely unjust. Yet God is claimed to be infinitely just by many religions. So since we are sparks of God, why would God be infinitely unjust? And why would God want to punish himself?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, good answer.
I know, it really brought a big relief on my chest for sure, because I used to worry about that. In heaven, I mean, like we said, I said earlier, our model of heaven is not being in the presence of a desert patriarch sitting on a throne with angels floating around. Now, I'm sure there are angelic beings, and I actually believe in angels, and I communicate with a couple of them. I've communicated with Gabriel, and I've also communicated with St. Michael, so I know in their existence. But it's not just being in the presence of angels. Heaven really is a place where we go to review our lives and probably get training and experience other beings that are there and interface and maybe get rested up between lives. But eventually we're going to evolve into higher spiritual beings. That's the whole purpose of reincarnation, so that we can grow.
You've got to bring out the things that will affect your next life. If you've had a problem with some aspect of this real world that does not work out well for you, then there should be the possibility here in the next lifetime to go and try and fix that, and or even develop some new characteristics. So it's a place of never-ending creativity, and unfortunately, some of that creativity can be unpleasant. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know. So I learned a lot about heaven by reading the book by Avon Alexander, the neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. It's a really profound book, and he did remember. I mean, he was actually presumed being dead because he was in a coma for 8 days. Isn't that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, for 8 days he had some horrible virus, E. coli virus, and it was thought by the doctors that even if he did come back to consciousness, that he would be a vegetable. But instead what happened is he went through this wonderful experience of passing through other realms and a heavenly level, and he did experience angelic beings and other beautiful things. And he even experienced God as a warm, dark, beautiful, velvety presence. So I can say that view of heaven is pretty nice to me. And I recommend that book if other people are interested.
Yeah, we like to think there's a heaven. We don't want to think there's a hell. We're going to take a short break now.
Okay.
You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer. My guests today are astrophysicist Bernard Haisch and executive editor at the Journal of Scientific Exploration, Marsha Sims. And we're discussing their book, The Miracle of Our Universe, a new view of consciousness, God, science, and reality. We'll continue the conversation after this break.
Om Times TV.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times' flagship radio show, What Is Going On? And as an author, editor, and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who have walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees, and no BS. Just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Everything that we do, we can do in a contemplative manner. Through the art of contemplation, you can use the gene keys in a really powerful way. Gene keys is basically the code book of life. In the gene keys, the book is made up of these three levels: shadows, gifts, and cities. And the journey is through those three levels, kind of unpicking of the shadow states, the releasing of the gifts, and then the embodying of this higher consciousness called the city. And the cities are very exalted words. And it's not like we kind of suddenly are all these exalted Christ-like beings, but we have flashes and illuminations along the journey. And the more we get stuck into the journey, the more illumination comes to us, because the more we're releasing the light from in these codes inside our DNA. So all those revelations are inside us. So the contemplative way is the inner way.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back. Bernard Haisch, Marsha Sims, you're both musicians, singers, songwriters, and you've performed together in a few operettas. Music, you say, is claimed to have the greatest influence on us of anything abstract in the world. It undergirds all of society. Why do you think that is? What is it about music that touches us so?
Well, it gets to the goes down to the level that music is very mathematical. And in this God model that we're discussing, the consciousness has created, the vast consciousness known as God has created the universe using mathematical algorithms. So Plato and Pythagoras started studying sound, and they, through their idea that the real world is not just the physical realm, but it's also, there's a world of mathematical forms. They discovered that when you take a string and you divide it in half, you could get, octaves. And so that is a mathematical concept. And Johann Sebastian Bach, the father of modern music, took it even further. And he devised a system of tuning that is based on mathematics. So using Bach's system, which all the music we use, Western music, all minor and major keys are able to be tuned on all instruments, and they go together by using the mathematical formula, the 12th root of 2 for each half step. So even though we listen to music in any kind of music, I mean, people have their own personal preferences, from classical music, opera, to disco music, DJ music, rap, popular country, chants, Muslim chants for prayers, singing in church. It's all based on math, the mathematics of sound. So other aspects of music, such as rhythm and time signature and other notations, are also mathematical. So that's why I think that God uses music as a mathematical expression through sound. And so when we're listening to music, we're really listening to the voice of God through his math, her math. And that's why I think it's the greatest influence of anything abstract in the world, because wherever you go, you hear music. You're going shopping at the store, there's music. You turn on the radio, there's music. You go to concerts, you turn on TV. Movies need music. The music sets the tone of the emotion for the story that's being told. So that's why I think that music is so important, because it fits in with our God model theory about everything being mathematically constructed. So, I mean, there's a hymn that I sang in church as a choir director with my choir. All nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres.
Well, they say that, children who learn to play a musical instrument, it actually helps them with their mathematics. Now, I've never really been very good at mathematics or music, although I love listening to music, and it clearly does affect me. But it is interesting because you talk about the mathematical universe, the geometries. When people have psychedelic experiences, I've heard of people reporting that they actually see, shapes, geometric shapes, grids, all of these things. What are they actually seeing?
Well, I actually have a friend, his name is Paul Robb, who sees music in shapes and colors. And so he's seeing some mathematical expression that's translating to a visual inside his head. I think that's called synesthesia. Yeah. And so most of us have probably seen the Disney movie Fantasia. So it's my thought, anyway, and other people have also probably thought this too, that movie was an expression of somebody who has or had synesthesia and wanted to express the music in cartoon form. And they're beautiful cartoons too, by the way. For that time in which that movie was presented, it was a gorgeous movie.
How
go ahead.
Having synesthesia and being able to see what he sees, how does that impact his life?
I think it just makes his life fuller, is what he's told me. And he hates getting sick. He told me when he gets a cold, his synesthesia goes away.
Oh.
So he said it's not nearly as much fun to listen to music. So for him, it's like an extra sense.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think is the most important thing that you share in your book for us to know?
The most important thing?
Yeah.
That's a hard question. What do you think, Bernie?
So I think the most important thing for me is
I'm going to think about it. Okay.
Is that we are spiritual beings, and as such, we can expect another life to rise after we finish this one. In fact, probably many. And to me, that is the most important piece of information that I gained about the nature of the universe. That it's the universe and we are infinite immortal beings. How could you get much better than that?
That's good. We are infinite immortal beings. Our purpose in life is to experience being and acting in the virtual world created by God, and that we are the senses of God exploring his creation. And what we do here really does matter, even though some people think it doesn't. We each have a purpose. Whatever that purpose is, it's a purpose that's going to keep the universe evolving. And so keeping that in mind, that everyone around you is a spark of God, I think that will help us all to be able to treat each other a little more kindly, because everyone has their own experience, their own backstory, but there's still a spark of God. And it's important to respect that spark of God in each human being each animal that you come across too. I mean, pets are sparks of God too. Birds, forest animals, yeah.
So God creates. Do you think that there's a continuous creation of new universes, new galaxies, new planets, new life forms?
Well, I think it is. I mean, that's sort of like the multi-level universe has been discussed for over 20 years now.
I think there are many hierarchies in the afterlife.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think that there are probably what we would call worlds in the afterlife. Worlds of specific realms. Maybe that's a better one.
Realms of existence, realms of being, consciousness.
So there's no shortage of things that would need to be researched and developed out and studied as would be the characteristics of the afterlife that we go to.
You know what I want to just talk about my awakening of the heart, because I think that's really appropriate. So there is a spiritual teacher here in Northern California and Oregon. Her name is Gagaji, and she holds satsangs. And I went to one of her satsangs, and I had awakening of the heart, and it really opened me up to who I really am. And I think that's a really important aspect of what we're discussing right here. So she walked into the room, and she was able to transpond powerful, divine energy of love. And I looked into her eyes, and when I looked into her eyes, as she walked into the room, she had not even said a word yet. This powerful, it was like an atomic bomb of love went off inside of me, and my heart started palpitating with love and throbbing in a joyous throbbing. And I closed my eyes, and I saw like spirals of purple and blue and pinks just spiral right out of the top of my head. And tears of joy just started streaming down my cheeks. And it was just an infinite love and weeping from the depths of my being. And I opened my eyes and I looked around the room, and everyone there in that room was a seeker, because we went to her satsang. And I could see that there were threads of light that connected me to each and every person in that room. And that we are all really interconnected in a very important way. So I think that's a really important thing to think about, that we are sparks of God and we are interconnected by love. And it's important to enjoy that. Give yourself time to enjoy love. There are many forms of love.
The implications of more of us, being able to understand that and enjoy that, as you say, because when you are in a space of love, there is no room for anything else. There is, hate, doesn't exist. They can't exist in the same space there. And I think more and more people are beginning to understand this and even experience it.
Yeah, and if you experience it, that's how you get your guaranteed ticket to heaven. Because that was the original title of the book that Bernie wanted to use. But our publisher said, well, that's not as catchy as The Miracle of Our Universe.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with it. And, I'm glad we did, because it is a really good title. But we can still get our guaranteed ticket to heaven by meditating and stilling and quieting our mind and giving ourselves a chance to fall into love and light, and to just fall into the emotion of joy. And if we could do that every single day, still our monkey mind that hops around from thought to thought, just still it and calm, gather everything together in one place, we do get a guaranteed ticket to heaven. For me, what happens to me when I meditate like that, I get this big, beautiful kind of circle of light inside my inner eye. And it's sort of a spring green. It's like a little ball of green, and then it has like purple halos around it. And when I get there, I feel like I'm one with my love. That's my visual, my synesthesia for love.
Yeah.
But everyone else will have their own, I'm sure.
Now, Marsha, you encourage people to dialogue directly with God on a daily basis.
Yes.
You know, how do you do that?
Well, what I just described is one of the ways that I do that. I put
Are you
myself.
having a dialogue when you're in that space?
Usually, what happens is everything just slows down and becomes very still, and then I get thoughts afterwards. I kind of converse with God. I ask for answers um, to my perplexing problems. I mean, we all have things that we're living with, and um, so I let God know what questions I need answered, and then I look around for answers. I guess that's how I dialogue. I get my answers in very interesting ways, and everyone gets them probably in a similar way. It's not always a voice speaking, sometimes it's a thought that appears. Um, oh, I know. My ears start ringing when I'm getting an answer, too. And then a thought appears. It's kind of a high pitched ring. It's just very short. Like, okay, here it is, Marsha. Beep. And then the thought comes into my head. But you can get answers just driving down the street. You might look at a sign on a freeway and it'll give you your answer. Or a truck moving down the street, you'll see it on the side of the truck. Oh, that was what I was looking for.
So, reincarnation, if the point of it is for us, you know, to experience karma, to learn, to expand, to continually evolve in some way, where does it all end?
Well, I don't think it ever does. I think it goes on and on.
Well, I think that there's been lots of writings about it. We're always trying to evolve to a higher form of spirituality. I have to quote my Huna training. Many of you probably don't know what Huna is, but it's a Hawaiian mysticism, the secret. And in the Huna training, there's 3 levels of consciousness or awareness. There's the subconscious, the unahipili, or the low self. There's the uhani, or the middle self, or the conscious part of us. And then there's the aumakua, which is the dual being that kind of resides up here above you in your aura. And that's your spiritual guide. So I think we're trying to evolve to be an aumakua, if the Hawaiian mysticism is correct. And that would be a joining together of a male-female awareness. And this aumakua then would become guides for some other human being that is trying to make the ascent. I think we're all helping each other out, actually. And I think that spirit guides that we have once were human, and they know they needed their help when they were humans too.
Well, people talk about young souls and old souls as if, you know, new souls suddenly appear out of nowhere and come to Earth, and then they start on the ladder working their way up. What do you think about that?
Well, it makes sense to me. I had a turtle for a long time. Her name was Pogo. And I always felt like it was my purpose with this little turtle. I was very fond of her. She was just a little land tortoise that I could hold in my hand. But I kind of taught her to be aware. Because when I first had her, she was just existing. You know what I mean? I could tell she was just existing. And I had her about, I don't know, maybe 15 years. I taught her to experience who I was and to feel who I was. And I could even hold her like she was a little dog. I would tickle her tummy and she'd wiggle around and she'd go, I even have a video of her doing that. And when she passed away, she came and said goodbye to me. And you know what she said? She said, that's her way of talking, because turtles don't have vocal cords. So I think I trained her as a human being. I think other beings are training me. They're training all of us. We're trying to learn. We're growing. And it's like you said, the universe is always expanding, right? I don't know if there is any end.
Wow. I mean, that's really hard to get your head around, because
Yeah.
it almost sounds like torture, a constant
But if
conveyor belt.
if you see it, I think it's important to see it in a different perspective. I think it's different to see it in a joy of growing, in joy of learning, in joy of expanding, not being stuck. Being stuck is torment.
I agree with you. The concept of our living forever and ever, is one that could be taken negatively, because we're used to having things be new and different and greater or lesser in this environment. So I can understand that, and I have that view myself sometimes, that I'm wondering, am I buying myself interest in something that's going to take up all my time forever and ever? I don't have any good counter explanation to that, other than that this cosmic consciousness that created us and created his own characteristics and so on. I guess we have to have some faith in him, that there is a reward for carrying out something that will evolve you to a greater, higher level, even though getting these rewards at intervals of time might seem like a clunky thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think about it like why I enjoy music teaching. I'm now a professional music teacher. I teach piano, voice, and guitar at MarshaSimsMusic.com if anyone's interested. But it is so rewarding to be helping other people to learn music and watching them grow and watching them get really good. And I think that's what we're doing with each other. We're all teaching each other, and it's really rewarding. It's fulfilling. So it's a joy to keep expanding.
Do you think we don't know how much we have expanded already, because we do not have memory of previous lives? And that may be a good thing.
That's the key element in making this whole system work. This whole system depends on one thing, and that is that we have more than one life. Because if we had only one life and not the ability to create something new, why then what would we be left with? What would we have? Nothing very pleasant, I assume. So it's the idea of having this current life be free to try all sorts of new things if it wants to, but it's able to do only because the previous lives can be forgotten.
But I do have to say, I do remember my past lives. So what Bernie says is correct, but I had a near-death experience when I was 16. And I'll tell you about it briefly.
Well, we really don't have time, actually. We're going to be cutting off in probably about 30, 45 seconds or so.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I had a near-death experience and I saw the other side, and it opened me to my past lives. How's that?
And were you happy with what you learned about them?
It was just enlightening to help me to understand who I am. I mean, there were negative things I remembered and positive things. Yeah.
So many questions. So many questions. So few answers. Yes, it's a continual, what's the word? Itch. That you can't scratch. But obviously, there are many, many more suggested answers in your book if people want to know more. Thank you both for being with us today. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Marsha.
Can you please send people to our website?
I will do that in my outro.
That'd be great. Thanks. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so The Miracle of Our Universe, A New View of Consciousness, God, Science and Reality by Bernard Haisch and Marsha Sims is published by New Page Books. For more information about Marsha, visit her website, MarshaSimsMusic.com. And I'm not sure where there is a website for Bernard, but I do know that thegodtheory.com is one of them. If there's more, please say before we close.
themiracleofouruniverse.com is where everything comes together for our book.
Wonderful.
All run together. Okay.
Thank you. That's it for this week. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer. I'll be back at the same time next week with another edition of What is Going On. Hope you'll join me then.